Nice introduction, and very much the case. 45 minutes ago I was in boots and blue jeans, and I will make that change again about 30 or 45 minutes from now. I appreciate you guys having me here today. It was nice coming into the room. There are some familiar faces, some people that I've done business with before, and obviously some new ones, and I'm happy to meet all of you. I wanted to take a couple minutes today, just talk a little bit about my background, how I got here. I'm fascinated personally with most entrepreneur stories. I always kind of want to know what the why is and how they got there. I'm happy to talk about some challenges that I've had along the way. There have been plenty of them, some a little bit embarrassing, and some are just kind of, how the road goes. And then particularly as it relates to this group, how my group of advisors have helped me. And have helped me advance my career. I think that any good entrepreneur would be quick to admit that you certainly cannot do it alone. And there are oftentimes, we are not big enough to have our own general counsel and our own HR manager and our own CPA on staff, or CFO even for that matter. So as you grow, those advisors become more and more important. So I don't know exactly when I first realized that I was an entrepreneur. It's probably not the same way that a football player knows when they're a football player, or maybe even a medical professional knows that they're going to be a medical professional. But in hindsight, I look back, and my first foray into entrepreneurship was probably in 6th grade. I had a friend named Bruce Lee who, yes, was Korean, yes, his parents owned and still own a karate dojo, and yes, was a black belt. And yes, I'm still friends with Bruce Lee. But anyway, Bruce Lee and I decided that we would go to Costco or BJ's or whatever it was at that point in time, and we would buy up candy and bubble gum in big boxes, and we shove them, our lockers full of this stuff. I don't know where the books went, it doesn't really matter at this point. And then we would resell it to our fellow classmates, and I don't know how successful we were at it, other than I remember doing it. And there were a couple other ventures along the way through school. We sold shot glasses, how we got away with that in 10th grade, t-shirts our senior year, and then when I went to school, I went to Florida State. And for those of you who are Florida State fans, you might appreciate this, and for those of you who aren't, you'll still probably appreciate it. A different friend of mine and I decided that we would stuff a van full of t-shirts and drive ourselves out to Tempe, Arizona for the 1998 Fiesta Bowl. Florida State was playing in the national championship against Tennessee. So we had this brilliant plan. We got all these t-shirts made. The two of us leveraged every dime that we could possibly gather on credit cards and wherever else we could get it from. And the number I have in my head is 3,000. I don't know if you can fit 3,000 t-shirts in a 15-passenger van, but I think it was about 3,000 t-shirts. And we drove all the way out to Tempe. So we get out there and we park on the streets of Tempe, Arizona, and literally open the door, and there's a tree, one of these street trees with a poster on it. The poster says, "No unauthorized selling of any merchandise related to the 1998 Fiesta Bowl without this and this and this and this permit." And we've got, this van t-shirts are falling out of the van at this point. So we spent the next 3 days trying to find ways to hustle them, and ended up breaking even about an hour before the game. Sold the last 100 t-shirts to a store that was right outside the stadium, who bought them for, probably $5 or $6 a piece. But anyway, we got our money back and we got to go to the game. So there are, in an entrepreneur story, there are lots of little mini stories like that throughout your history and your career. And after that, I took a bit of a pause and graduated school, went to work for a big hotel company, not this one, but a big hotel company right before September 11th. Now, after September 11th, my position was eliminated throughout the company. So I was 8 or 9 weeks into the job, and we were worked in Atlanta, in a big hotel in Atlanta, and I was led down. We had 54 meeting rooms, and I was led by the catering director, I think it was. She said, "Hey, will you come with me for a second?" I said, "Sure. You want me to go get my stuff?" And she said, No, you won't need it." And she takes me and leads me down through all these rooms, and anyone who's ever been laid off before knows this site. She opens the door into the last, the 54th room, and the two managers of the hotel are sitting there at a little table with a stack of folders sitting next to it. And even at 22, I knew, this was not a good meeting that I was about to go into. But it's an interesting feeling, because you get laid off, you've done nothing wrong, and you're taught your whole life, you work hard, keep your nose down, be on time, stay late if your boss asks you to stay late, go to school, get your degree, and everything's going to work out fine. And it didn't. And I was led outside afterward with my folder, and the door slams behind me, and you know, this cold, breezy day in Atlanta, and I'm just sitting there going, what am I going to do? And I ended up finding a couple of jobs here and there, and I worked for a hockey team down in Tampa, and then I got into pharmaceutical sales. And so I did this for about 4.5 years, hated it, and it's a fine industry. It was not the industry for me. Really didn't like it, and I started to get pulled back into this idea that maybe I should be running my own business. What type of business? I have no idea, but some business. I had a mentor, and this is really where I still have my mentor, but this is where the advisors start to really play a bigger role in my life. This was an old family friend, and he had sort of semi-retired to Amelia Island. Well, this was in my geographical territory, so every time that I was in that area, I would go see him. And he was slowly sort of coaching me through some of the early stages of becoming an entrepreneur and running your own business, and really just trying to help me avoid some of the worst mistakes, like buying the wrong business or paying too much for one. An entrepreneur's career can get cut short pretty quickly if you do that. I remember in 2006, I made an offer on a portable toilet business that was north of Gainesville. I am, to this day, so thankful that that did not work out. But I thought at the time, you know, if I can do this, I can do anything, and whatever, it didn't work out, I'm really glad. So we get to 2007, and I did find a business that was in existence, a small place. We had one full-time, one part-time employee called Fernandina Mulch and Stone. I quit my pharmaceutical job, literally did, you know, get rid of the suit and tie, and had dump truck and a couple of dump trucks and a tractor, and we were going to sell these supplies out of Fernandina. Well, for those of you with any type of memory, you realize that 2007 is not the best time to get into a business, especially where it's discretionary income type of a business, and so we went through a couple of really tough years, but we did grind it out and we did make it. We actually grew. We were flat from 08 to 09, but have grown since 2009. We've got 37 employees today. Along the way, I also bought a Fast Signs franchise up in Fernandina and sold that a couple of years ago, and I bought a used car dealership at one point, and ended up having to close that down. So when you look at some mistakes, now I certainly was pushing myself to a limit that both financially and probably from a time management perspective, I had crossed over, you know, whatever threshold or line that I was capable of, at least at that time. And I don't regret, you know, making those decisions. I'm still paying for some of them today, but I do think that it's important that I did everything that I could to push myself to that point. And so again, going back to some of the advisor things, had I called my accountant before signing that agreement, instead of calling my accountant and saying, hey Matt, I just bought a used car dealership, or you know, had talked to my banker before doing it, instead of saying, hey Chad, you know, I just bought this used car dealership, I don't have any money, but I'm going to need some money, and you know, how are we going to make this work? I think that maybe I could have either avoided some of those mistakes or been a little bit more prepared for the decisions that I was making. So I don't know that, you know, going back to the beginning of what I was saying, I don't know as an entrepreneur if you're born with it or not. I do know that there are skills that are developed along the way. And I can certainly attest to the importance of having different advisors to help me out. So before I tell you just a little bit more about my business, I wrote down a few minutes ago some of the different advisors that I've had that have helped me. So I've got a mentor, and he's been a longtime mentor of mine since before buying the first business. For those of you who have mentors, great. For those of you that don't, I would find one as soon as possible. And for those of you that are coaching or working with entrepreneurs or small business owners, he has been the most invaluable person in my development as a business person. I also look to my father and my mother, but particularly my father a lot for business advice. But my mentor has this unique ability to give me this impartial advice that I can't seem to discount because he's my dad or not my dad. And all of you probably know that feeling of, you know, your parents say, don't jump off that bridge, don't jump off that bridge, you're going to jump off that bridge. Someone that you respect says, don't jump off the bridge, and you're like, maybe I shouldn't jump off the bridge. Your parents are pulling their hair out, but that's just kind of the way that life works. And he's played that role for me and really helped steer me away from some of the bigger mistakes that I probably could have made. I've got an accountant that is a little bit more than just an accountant. Adam was just talking a few minutes ago about the relationship that he develops with some of his customers, and I think that it's important to have, at least again in my position, to have an accountant that really engages with you and really makes an attempt to learn about your business. So there's the paper part of my business, and then there's the real thing, and that's everything from managing the cash flow to preparing for future years' taxes, and making purchasing decisions based on new tax laws, and all of these things are playing a role in my business. If my accountant takes this type of an approach, then I'm going to make mistakes, or I'm not going to take advantage of things that I could have otherwise taken advantage of. I've got an attorney. I avoid him as much as possible. He's expensive, and probably most of you are, and you probably deserve every dime that you get. I still avoid mine as much as possible. Usually there's a problem when I do have to call him. Or I kind of think they're like friends with boats. Like I want to kind of befriend him because maybe I can sneak in a little bit of advice here or there, casually, but then I don't really want the boat, or I don't really want the attorney because I don't want the bill that comes along with it. And I'm not sure if my metaphor's entirely worked out yet, but maybe next time I see you guys. There are a lot of free or low-cost resources and partnerships that you can take advantage of in Jacksonville. The Small Business Development Center has been a great resource for me. In addition to some of the recognition that they've helped me achieve, of course I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Kathy and her team. They've also given me real hard data and advice and consulting to help me make better decisions about my business. The Jacksonville Chamber, on some level is free, and on some level has costs or is low cost, is another great resource. The Jim Moran Institute, I've taken advantage of several of their programs. Those are just a few of the things in this area that are either free or low cost. And I would either advise you guys or advise you to advise your customers that those are all things that they should probably explore. Now, like most things in life, the more you put into them, the more you'll get out of them. But I know that they've helped me further along my career and achieve some of our goals a little bit faster. I've also got partners like web.com. I heard that they're going to be putting on a digital or e-commerce class for you guys next month. They have helped me come up with an e-commerce store that we're very proud of. We think it is a part of the future of our business, as it has been for many others. And so if any of you are so inclined, visit our website, and if you send us an email, those come back to me, the ones from the website. So if you see something you like or don't like, I'd love to get your feedback there. But they've been a good partner of ours. Wouldn't be even close to where I am today without good banking relationships, and certainly have an insurance agent to help make sure that if there's any extra money, we can send it off to them every month as well. There are a lot of really important advisor relationships that you have and that you develop through small business, and it's interesting because you start thinking, at least I do, I imagine my business much bigger than it is today, and I keep thinking, well, when we get to 50 employees, I can hire an HR person, because that's not my favorite thing to do. But I don't know that it's going to work out that way. And if we do hire an HR person at 50, am I able to afford the one that can really help us get to 100 employees? Or am I really better off outsourcing that part of our business until we get even bigger? And the same thing goes with all of the other categories that I already kind of went through. So that's just a little bit about my background, our business, and some of the advisor relationships that I've had. I don't know what you guys normally do, but if you have any questions, I'd love to talk about business, so I'm happy to take them. But other than that, that's kind of my story, folks. Nancy.
What was the most challenging thing that you've encountered since owning this business?
Yeah. There are two things that always come to mind, and the one that comes first is people. Whether it was hiring the second employee or the 37th employee, finding them, retaining them, coaching them, taking the amount of time to have personal relationships with them, really starts to get stretched as you get a little bit bigger. So now I'm trying to have those relationships with my managers, and then encourage them to have relationships with the people that are working directly for them. But people is definitely the hardest part, and it was a challenge in 2011 when there were a lot of people looking for jobs. It has been a challenge now when there are either less people looking for jobs or less qualified people. We use Indeed a lot and probably look at 60 to 80 applications for every job that we hire, and probably interview anywhere from 5 to 15 for every job that we hire. And these are what you would generally consider lower paying jobs. So the people part is really, really tough. You just have to dedicate a lot of time to it. Any other questions?
Mike, talk about your product mix. What do you
Sure.
sell? And
Yeah,
it's
so
probably your favorite subject, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's a list of things that seems to be growing daily. But we started in '07, or when I bought the business. We sold bulk mulches, bulk gravel, bulk dirt. We have since added all of those products by the bag. We have a full nursery now, a couple of full nurseries. Trees are a really big part of our business. Field-grown trees like bigger palm trees, containerized trees, fruit trees, magnolias, oaks, hollies, any type of tree that would normally do well in this area. Sod is the worst part of my industry, but sod is a necessary evil, so we do sell that as well. Dirt, sand, really the fundamental or the foundation products that you need in the landscape. I always tell people that we don't sell the knick-knack type items, so no bird feeders, wind chimes, that type of stuff is not necessarily us, but really the core materials that you need for a project. Flagstone we sell, concrete or brick pavers we don't. We really try to be in product categories where we can be very competitive, very high quality products at, if nothing else, the same cost that you might find somewhere else. So one of the things that's allowed us to be successful over the years is our willingness and really desire to deliver materials to people. So our mission statement is to make landscape projects easy, or at least as easy as they can be. And any of you who have done your own landscape projects before know that, at least I believe, half of the battle is getting the stuff from my store home. And if you drive a nice little convertible Lexus and you got to fit 50 bags of red mulch in the back of it, that's a problem. And if my mission is to try to make that project as easy as possible, then I need to find a way to get those materials to you so they don't leak red mulch juice into the trunk of your car, or your plants aren't dropping half their fertilizer into your back seat. These are real, I say very real problems, relative, but they are real problems in my industry. And so if we figure out a way to make that part of the project easier for you, you're more likely to do another project, or maybe make less of a face the next time your wife asks you to do another project. That's really what we're trying to do. Adam?
So, what's your competitive advantage? Because you're competing with the Lowe's and the Home Depots, and then
Sure.
you're competing with the Ace Hardwares as well as other nurseries. Are you primarily retail, or are you in the commercial?
That's a great question, and it's one that we have to constantly ask ourselves, because otherwise you become obsolete really, really quick. I didn't invent anything. We are 52% retail and 48% commercial contractors. So they're two very different customers, and they have two very different needs. The commercial customers, they need the quantity of material that they need right now. They do not typically plan well in advance. So where we would separate ourselves from an Ace or a Lowe's or a Home Depot in that area is we've got it. We have more space dedicated to landscape supplies than any of those other companies. So if you need 5 tons of gravel, you're not saying how many pallets of it do you have by the bag at this store, and then if I go to that store, can I pick it up? I scoop it up, dump it in your trailer, or deliver it to you. You can get the job done today. For the retail customer, it's much more of a relationship type process. I didn't understand this at all when I first bought the business. I thought people would come in once a year, they'd buy mulch. If they were lucky enough to remember us next year when they needed it, they'd come back. What we find is that a lot of our customers are visiting us 6 to 10 times a year. Then there's a segment of them that are coming and seeing us 20 to 30 times a year. And sometimes they're not buying anything, and sometimes it's a $6 plant, and sometimes it's $6,000 worth of plants. But our ability to have staff on hand that can help answer questions and help you get the right amount of stuff faster also makes that landscape project easier. right? So we've all had projects where we've had to go to Lowe's 8 times to get it done, right? You know, oh my God, I ran out, I need one more screw, I need one more piece of lumber, I need one more of this or that, and it just never seems to end. You may not be able to take it down from 8 to 1, but if I can get you from 8 trips to my store to 3, then I've made that project a little bit easier for you. If you come in and say, I need 4 tons of river rock, and I say, sure, Adam, if you don't mind me asking, what are you doing with it? Well, I've got this little area off to the side of my driveway and I want to park my boat over there. And I say, I'll sell you all the river rock you want, but based on my experience, that's not the best product for it. You know, you're going to end up getting ruts in your driveway, the rock's going to get all over the place, and it costs more. Get this one instead. I've made that project easier for you. I've further developed the relationship that we're going to have together. And just to answer your question a little bit further, we now need to be able to do that digitally. So on our website, we have a material calculator. And you say, I've got 3 areas. One is 10 by 20, one is 3 by 60, and one is 4 by 15. Calculate the amount of square feet that is. You select the product that you want. Let's say it's limestone. Then you select the depth. I'm doing just a thin top dressing, a landscape depth, a walkway depth, or a driveway. It'll tell you exactly how much you need. So now you're not left to try to make those calculations on your own. Now, if you love numbers and you love math, great, do it on your own. But if you don't, you can have a little bit more confidence in your project. So instead of saying, you know, I have no idea how much this is going to take, I don't even know where to start, anything that we can do to kind of help further that along. So that's my long way of saying customer service is really important in my business, the same way it is in any of yours, but that's kind of how we do it. George.
I want to cheat a little bit. I've been, Mike and I know each other for several years. You touched slightly on it, on the people side of things, but when I've been to his stores, it's clear to see your employees engaging with the customers. So they come in, and the customers obviously they're a little lost, and the employees grab their customers and guide you right through the process. So you're talking about recruiting and retaining. You're obviously recruiting some great people.
Yeah, we're hiring for attitude and initiative. Those are the things that we look for, and I don't have a plethora of people coming to me with nursery experience or with landscaping experience even. And so if I can just get people there with the right attitude and the right initiative, we'll take them from there. We'll train them, we'll teach them about plants, I can teach them about trees. We even give a little math quiz, which you wouldn't think you would see in a business like mine, but every new employee gets this little quiz, and what it does is it tells me, is this person going to be able to consult with customers, or are they going to be more likely the one who's loading bags of mulch in the car? And by doing that stuff, we can kind of put people in the right places, or at least try.
Mike, you mentioned you have 2 greenhouses. Could you talk about what you use those for? And number 2, you need to tell us where your business is located. So
of course.
if on a retail level, we want to drop by, and what are your hours?
Sure. Yeah, we our location in Jacksonville is it's on Main Street by the airport. So if you were to look at Jacksonville, this is 95, and the airport's right here. We're right over here on Main Street, so right behind River City Marketplace. For those of you who make it up that way. You can certainly visit us online. I would encourage all of you to do that, even if you end up not using our services or our products for whatever project you're working on. There's a lot of information on our website. Oftentimes we find that information in our industry is not very regionally specific online, so you may find the proper way to take care of a particular plant in Ohio. It may be different down here. We do also have a location in Fernandina on A1A, just as you're the only real way in and on and off of that island now, and if you dare go up there and deal with the current traffic, Kathy's shaking her head, you can't miss us. We are just about a mile before you hit the bridge. So between those 2 locations and in our online store, those would be the ways to find us. We have a farm out in Hilliard where we have our greenhouses and where we're growing some of our own material. That's a new operation for us, but just kind of an attempt to control the supply chain a little bit more and make sure that we've got the products we need when we need them.
What's the website address?
It's libertylandscapesupply.com.
Thank you.
Yes.
Were you interested in landscaping before you bought this
Not at
business,
all.
or did you have to learn all of this technical?
Yeah, not at all. And a lot of people ask me that, especially when I'm standing in front of them in a suit and tie, and they're like, "Dude, what? How do you even? How does this even relate?" I think that part of the appeal to me, frankly, was, every little boy wants to ride a tractor and drive around in a dump truck, and so I probably overpaid for the business a little bit because of that when I first bought it. But I really did fall in love with it, and what I like so much about it is it's real tangible. What we do, if you come and buy some trees from us, your house looks like this today. And then when you come home that night, it looks like that, but with 2 trees in front of it. And I think that's different from a lot of the other services and products that a lot of people are selling. And frankly, a lot of you in this room are selling. Like you were talking about before, they're services. And the fact that we sell tangible goods that, at least at this point, are still difficult to outsource, I think there's a real good spot for us in the marketplace. And it's what I love. It's you can move into a $500,000 house, but it's the $5,000 or $6,000 that you put in landscaping that makes the big impact, in the front, at least when you're coming home. Once you're inside, different story. Yes, sir.
Is your goal to expand to any more locations? And if
Yes.
so, what kind of, decision-making process are going?
Yeah, so there is no such number that would be too many, and it couldn't happen fast enough, as far as I'm concerned. And there's obviously a lot of obstacles that get in the way of that. The people part is hard. I've got to make sure that we have the right management team. I can't open a 3rd location until I know that I've got managers that can run the first 2, because otherwise the 3rd one's going to flop. And then there's the money part. And I know there's some bankers in the room who probably say, hey, we can help with that. But even if you can, it's not that easy. There's a lot of risk in what we do. Banks don't want to come cut a lock off of a gate and come pick up 4,000 plants from my nursery. So there will be some challenges for us, but yeah, I'd love to open more locations. I think there's a good opportunity in our industry. I think there's a good opportunity in Jacksonville. I think it's probably an underserved market category. Any other questions?
All right.
Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.